Isn't that their own law? I don't think the prejudice will ever stop, said the woman, who agreed to talk to a reporter only on the condition of anonymity. She waged a personal battle in modern times against the bitter legacy of Plecker, who ran the Bureau from 1912 to 1946. A racial supremacist, Plecker and his influential allies helped shape one of the darkest chapters of Virginia's history. It was an epic of Virginia-sponsored racism. When he perceived Indians as threats to enforcing the color line, he used the tools of his office to endeavor to crush them and deny their existence. Many Western tribes experienced government neglect during the 20th century, but the Virginia story was different. The Indians were consciously targeted for mistreatment. Plecker changed racial labels on vital records to classify Indians as colored. Again, and we got his own words saying this in the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. We actually read it. All right, go back to it or just Google it yourself. All right. He was on purpose, right? Changing racial labels on vital records and classifying Indians as what? Colored. Aren't you colored? Ain't your ancestors and your grandparents and everybody weren't they called colored? That means they were Indians. Alright, investigated the pedigrees of racially suspect citizens and provided information to block or annual interracial marriages with whites. He testified against Indians who challenged the law. Virginia's Indians refused to die out, although untold numbers moved away or assumed a low profile. Now, 8 surviving tribes recognized by Virginia in the 1980s are preparing to seek sovereign status from the U.S. government through an act of Congress. About 3,000 of the 15,000 Indians counted in Virginia in the 1990 census were indigenous to the state, experts say. Indigenous to the state. It's not that we're trying to dig him up and re-enter him again, said Gene Atkins, assistant chief of the Eastern Chickahominy tribe. Chickahominy. We want people to know that he did damage the Indian population here in the state, and it's taken us years, even up to now, to try to get out from under what he did. It's a sad situation, really sad, said Chief William P. Miles of the Pamunkey tribe. He came very close to committing statistical genocide on Native Americans in Virginia, and it was paper genocide. Chief G. Ann Richardson of the Rappahannock tribe spoke bluntly. Devastation, Holocaust, genocide. Those are the words I would use to describe what he did to us, she said. It was obvious his goal was the demise of all Native Americans in Virginia. We were not allowed to be who we are in our own country by officials in the government. They weren't allowing you to be who you are. Necessarily confronting an error. On Wooded Bear Mountain, miles up a country road outside Amherst, a visitor finds more evidence of new willingness to confront Plecker's era head-on. It's the historical center of the Monacan Indian Nation. A one-room log schoolhouse dating to the 1870s is standing. Also, there are a simple white church and a small ancestral museum with a new sign proclaiming, "History preserved is knowledge gained." Tribal Activities and researcher Diane Chills digs into her files and pulls out for a visitor a dozen manila folders with photocopies of Plecker's letters covering 2 decades. The Monacans acknowledge the stigma and pain, the second-class status, the lack of economic opportunity, and the inferior education inflicted upon them in other Virginia tribes.